Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here and 4Ks, and we do like the releases of Kino Lorber, as they are quite varied in their output. And been very excited about a lot of the 4Ks they've been announcing recently, and I'll get to one of those in just a minute. But basically, I'm going to try and talk about this group of titles from Kino Lorber, and we'll just kind of go through them one at a time, starting with one of those 4Ks that I was very excited about, which is Hatari. I'm wearing my Directed by Howard Hawks shirt for this. Hatari is, of course, a Howard Hawks film, and it was one that came out in 1962. It is a great example of the kind of stuff he was doing throughout his career, certainly, but just the professionalism thing that he carries through is certainly part of this film, and he's collaborating again with screenwriter Lee Brackett. She, one of the great screenwriters of this period, wrote Rio Bravo, worked on, The Big Sleep, was just a really, really great writer, would go on to work on, Empire Strikes Back and things like that. Long Goodbye, she helped with that. I'm a big fan of her writing. And so this film comes in 1962. It is on the heels of Rio Bravo. He makes Rio Bravo in 1959. And that, of course, stars John Wayne. This stars John Wayne. In this case, the cast is interesting because it's a lot of more or less slightly lesser known actors, but great character actors that I enjoy. People like Red Buttons playing Pockets. Hardy Kruger is in this as Kurt. Bruce Cabot is in here as Little Wolf. I think he's also known as the Indian in this. But there's also some folks like Elsa Martinelli, who I'm aware of, but, she plays Dallas. And Michelle Girardon. I'm not getting that name right, but so it's Wayne is the big headliner for this one, and you got some nice supporting people if you know Hardy Kruger, if you know Red Buttons, of course, is in a lot of movies. But in the case of Atari, the story centers around a group of folks that have made it their job to capture wild animals in Africa for zoos. And one of the great things about the movie, and one of the great things about this 4K, is that there's some just beautiful and kind of breathtaking scenes with animals where they're chasing animals in trucks. The opening is a wonderful scene, intense scene, where they're going after a rhino. And all that stuff is real. Like, whether or not the real actors are involved in every shot is, of course, not necessarily going to be the case. But they are involved in quite a few of the shots. Wayne doing, some of his own sort of stunt work in this case. But yeah, so the movie sort of fluctuates between those amazing scenes in Africa on the plains or wherever. I forget where it's shot. With all there's a particularly stunning sequence I love where they're riding after some giraffes, and you get to see a small herd of giraffes like running, and that is just one of the most majestic things I can think of. But this is a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative, brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master, and it looks great for me. And so I was really psyched to see this. It's shot by Russell Meddy. I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for his photography here. He lost out to I forget who shot Lawrence of Arabia, but that's a tough one to beat ultimately. But so this movie's got a really nice vibe to it. It's partial, going after these animals, partial hangout at their little villa that they have. And then we've got some ladies that get involved. One younger woman whose dad was sort of a part of this business, and she's grown up and now is sort of catching the eye of a couple of the younger guys. And we have the Elsa Martinelli character, Dallas, she goes by, who is a photographer who's come there, and she kind of, throws things out of whack for the group. And, one of those romance things with John Wayne, we were kind of like, maybe not really. But like at the time, I guess it maybe seemed okay. But at least he's a little reluctant because he is obviously, quite an older man in this. What I will say is the romancy stuff is kind of clunky even now for me. But the general hangout stuff and the footage of the trying to capture the animal stuff is just amazing. And so I was really excited to see it in this new 4K. Really excited that Kino announced this. This, of course, has a Blu-ray as well. Has a new audio commentary, I believe new, by film historian, writer Julie Kirgo and writer-filmmaker Peter Henkoff. And this movie is not short. It's 157 minutes, so just shy of 3 hours. Well, 2 hours, 37. And I kind of like that about it too, because it does allow the time for the hanging out and for the animals and for the romance stuff. There's some cute stuff with baby elephants, and it's got an incredible score, of course, by the great Henry Mancini, which was one of my favorite record albums when I was in college. I would just put it on. Just the theme to Hatari I found to be a fun, an enjoyable, chill mood setter, but it also has some just great upbeat stuff like Baby Elephant Walk, which everybody would recognize. But anyway, really excited about this release, really happy with it. Hatari from Howard Hawks, well worth grabbing. On to another director I am definitely a fan of, and that is Brian De Palma. And here we have Snake Eyes on 4K. His film with Nicolas Cage from 1998. Now, De Palma, this is, some would be more satisfied with some of his work post Mission Impossible, but this is the film he does right after Mission Impossible, which he did in 96. Some would say maybe this is his last really good movie, but you can make a case for some of the other stuff. Femme Fatale I think is pretty enjoyable, but he's really firing on all cylinders here. This movie opens with just a really bravura tracking shot where they're just following Nicolas Cage around for a really long time, and they're breaking it up in that sort of Hitchcock way with little secret cuts here and there, but it's all about a boxing match and a sort of on the take cop who has to have a moment of maybe I need to step up in this time of badness. And that guy's played Rick Santoro, played by Nicolas Cage. But it's a neat movie because the camera is just really moving like crazy. De Palma's outdoing himself here, and there's a big conspiracy and things happening that some may like better than others. I think it's fascinating. It also has almost sort of a Rashomon type vibe in that we get to see the boxing match. There is a shooting at the event, and we get to see that happen from multiple angles and from multiple points of view. But it's fascinating to watch it play out in the way that De Palma has, so carefully orchestrated it. It even has some really great overhead shots that I'm a big fan of, that remind me of his early work. Like there's a shot in Get to Know Your Rabbit where we're like directly above the set of this apartment, and we see the walls and everything, and we see the man go out. And there's something like that with these hotel rooms, because this boxing match is taking place at a sort of casino, a resort. So there are like posh hotel rooms in the place where, people are hiding, if you will. Cast includes Gary Sinise, Carla Gugino, John Hurd, big fan of John Hurd, Stan Shaw. I love Stan Shaw. He's the boxer guy in this movie, and it's maybe like the third time he's played a boxer, I want to say, because he plays one in Tough Enough with Dennis Quaid, and I think he plays one in one of the Rocky movies, I want to say. But I'm a big fan of him. He's played cops in some other movies. He's always reliable. Also, Kevin Dunn, Luis Guzman, Mike Starr. Mike Starr, of course, in charge of security. I feel like I've seen Mike Starr do a role like this before. But some other faces you'll recognize for sure. But a very enjoyable thriller with a very energetic De Palma doing his thing. And this has an audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Nathaniel Thompson. But that is it for the extras. But this is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative, and it looks great. Another Paramount title. But yeah, definitely one that you should revisit if you haven't seen it recently, or I don't know. I just feel like it didn't quite get the positive press at the time it came out, and I feel like people have come around to it a lot more in the last however many years since its release. But it's definitely one that's worth looking at again, especially in a nice 4K like that. So that's Snake Eyes. Then we have one from a director you don't hear as much from these days, Mike Figgis, and that's Internal Affairs. This is also a 4K. Mike Figgis was, maybe most known for Leaving Las Vegas. But he's made some interesting films in his time, and he's still making films. 2019, Somebody Up There Likes Me was the last one I can find. Maybe he's doing some TV work too. But so Leaving Las Vegas is a big one for him. Stormy Monday, I recommend. I think Arrow put out a Blu-ray of that years ago. Yeah, so he also did Time Code, which is a fascinating movie in terms of sort of experimenting with narrative and multiple cameras, where the screen is literally split into 4 sections and you watch all 4 sections playing out in real time. Fascinating movie for those that haven't seen that. But anyway, I think Internal Affairs is probably, for me, his best film. And it's a really powerful police drama. As you can tell, Internal Affairs would indicate it's about cops that are not necessarily on the up and up. And so I'm just curious how they... Again, brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of 35 camera negative. It looks good. It's not like eye-popping. I think there's just something about the way that he shot it that makes it a little different. But the detail and everything, the color is there. It looks very nice. Dennis Peck knows his way around the law. Dennis Peck, of course, played by Richard Gere in this. He can launder money, run a scam, fix a bad rap. He can even, for the right price, arrange a murder. Trust me, he says, I'm a cop. Richard Gere is Peck, and Andy Garcia is Raymond Avila, the LAPD investigator determined to bring Peck to justice. But Peck isn't going down without a fight. The slick, cold-blooded manipulator intends to take Avila's career, his marriage, and even his sanity with him to Internal Affairs. Maverick filmmaker Mike Figgis directs this taut, sexy, supercharged neo-noir thriller that will glue you to your seat and keep your heart racing. Featuring Nancy Travis, Laurie Metcalf, William Baldwin, Michael Beach, Elijah Wood, Richard Bradford, Xander Berkeley, and Annabella Sciorra. And yeah, it's a really great cast. I'm a pretty big Andy Garcia fan, and I don't think he was the original guy that they had. I know Garcia was attached early, and I can't remember if Gere was the original guy they had thought of for the Peck character, but he is pretty fantastic in this as this really evil, sociopathic cop who just sees himself as being above the law in any possible way, or that he's doing what he's doing, the corrupt things, to, ultimately make the city a better place. And so it's one of those things where he really just pulls that off in such an incredible way. Like you see that he's a charming manipulator. You see how people would fall for him and go along with his, underhanded stuff. And he is incredibly vindictive and just really gets into Andy Garcia's head in this way that's so effective. Nancy Travis is his wife. She gets roped into this. Laurie Metcalf is his partner, Andy Garcia's partner in Internal Affairs, and they're really good together. I really like them as a duo. Elijah Wood is, I want to say, is he one of Billy Baldwin's kids? I can't remember now, but Michael Beach is from One False Move, and he's one of the cops in here that kind of gets into it with the Peck character. It's a really neat ensemble cast. Annabelle Sciorra is Peck's wife, is the wife of Richard Gere in this, and I'm always a big fan of hers as well. So it's just a really deep bench in terms of the cast, and it just really ramps up as it goes. You're just like, is Peck gonna get away with this stuff? Is he gonna take Andy Garcia's character down with him, or is he just gonna, what's gonna happen? Where is this gonna end up? Because it feels like it could go a few different ways. And I was just reminded how much I enjoy this movie. So a very nice 4K, and it includes a commentary by film critics Alan Silver and James Orsini, which is really solid, and The Clever and the Corrupt, which is an interview with director Mike Figgis, which I found fascinating. His Most Dangerous Weapon, interview with screenwriter Henry Bean, talking about researching this script and how he ended up, basing it on some things. Fascinating conversation there. One Bad Cop, interview with co-composer Anthony Marinelli, and some extended and deleted scenes, and an alternate ending, which is also interesting. So that is Internal Affairs on 4K. Okay, I'm not going to do the thing, I mean, I kind of am, but I don't mean to, where I'm like, why no 4K for this? Because it's just a big favorite of mine, and that's Miracle Mile. But I will say this release is a pretty nice step up from the previous Kino Lorber Blu-ray. And same goes for another film from the same director, Steve DeJarnot. This is a brand new HD master from a 4K scan of the original 35 camera negative. And this movie is really a big cult favorite at this point. But I feel like it's not nearly as unknown as it once was. So as much as I like a 4K, I will say that this Blu-ray is pretty great. So I'm not too disappointed, because it's a 2-disc set. We'll get into it. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening here. But so if you haven't seen Miracle Mile before, Miracle Mile is a movie about a guy who, played by Anthony Edwards, who intercepts a phone call from somebody working in a missile silo, and gets a little heads up that there is a nuclear attack going to happen to Los Angeles. And he's got a little bit of a heads up over the rest of the city. And he decides he wants to try and go and get this girl played by Mare Winningham, which he's just met, who he really likes. And it's just sort of the wild adventure of him trying to get to her and trying to get out of the city. And there's a lot of colorful characters in here. Another really nice cast, including John Agar, Michael T. Williamson, Kelly Jo Minter, Kurt Fuller, Denise Crosby from Star Trek Next Generation, Robert DeKey, who's in like a lot of... He plays like one of the cops in Cloak and Dagger. He's in some blaxploitation films. I'm a big fan of him. Alan Rosenberg, Danny De La Paz, Brian Thompson shows up at one point, if you know him. It's Jeanette Goldstein is in here too. But yeah, it's fascinating to see this movie, especially right now when LA is going through one of the worst fires that we've had in recent memory. This one is really bad, and the city's actually burning right now as I'm recording this. Yeah, very, very sad stuff. And so this movie just had a weird, different resonance right now. But it was one of the first movies that I saw where I really took to LA, and I was like, wow, this is hitting different parts of LA. It's hitting the Miracle Mile district. It's hitting, which is actually, I work near Johnny's restaurant, which is the place where Mayor Winningham's character works in the film, and is sort of a center for the group of people that we are following that find out about this phone call, and try to figure out what they could do to get out of town. So it's a really intense movie in that way, and there aren't too many like it. But it's really one that's stuck with me for a long time and been very important to me. So I'm always about a new release of this movie. Now, the previous release of this had a bit of the stuff that we're seeing here. Audio commentary by director Steve DeJarnette, moderated by Walter Chow. That's here. We have the audio commentary by Steve DeJarnette, his cinematographer Theo Van Den Sand, and production designer Chris Horner. That's also here. Excavations from the editing room, tar pits, deleted scenes, outtakes, and bloopers. Those are included here as well, of course, and an alternate ending. But that's it for this previous Blu-ray. Now this one goes a bit further. Again, this is a 2-disc set versus a single disc set. So we have the movie and some of the features on one, and then a second disc that's all features. And so we have another audio commentary by Los Angeles literary mavens Janet Fitch and Matthew Spector of LA as a character in Miracle Mile. And Johnny's supporting cast reunion parts 1 and 2 featurette, which is a really neat thing where they're talking to some of the supporting cast coming back. And I definitely dig that. Scoring Miracle Mile, interview with Paul Haslinger. Now that's part of this Blu-ray, the Arrow Region B locked disc, which also has the commentaries. Let's see here. Harry and Julie, interview with stars Anthony Edwards and Mayor Winningham. That came from this. And the Music of Tangerine Dream, interview with co-composer Paul Haslinger. So Scoring Miracle Mile, interview with Paul Haslinger. I'm not exactly sure if those are the same, but we get that. I don't know if it includes this Rubidoo Rising, a short story read by Steve DeJarnette. That's one that maybe is missing from this. But this has some really cool stuff because it has this 1978 short film called Tarzana that was directed by and written by Steve DeJarnette. And it's pretty cool. It's a movie. It's a film noir type thing, starring Michael C. Gwynn, who I remember from Payday. He's the manager character in Payday with Rip Torn, but also has Edie Adams, Timothy Carey, Eddie Constantine, Ann Dusenberry, Rennie Santoni. It's about 30 minutes long, and it's a cool little black and white noir from 78. I dug it. It was neat to see that. So that's included. On top of that, another of his short films, Eat the Sun, which is about a mockumentary about the Temple of Self-Amplification, a New Age church where devotees utilize biofeedback to progress through tapizia ritual led by church leader Elder Viduro Telemahandi in hopes of achieving total enlightenment, aka the impossible truth. So I didn't get a chance to check that out yet, but there are others, interviews, featurettes, storyboards, deleted scenes, outtakes, bloopers, tributes. It's a really incredible, this is a 2025 release, I think. Yeah. So this is already going to be on my list for, best of 2025. Just a really comprehensive, wonderful special edition of a movie that I'm a big fan of. So definitely recommend Miracle Mile as a movie and as a pickup for that. Previous to Miracle Mile, which I'd forgotten, DeJarnette did Cherry 2000, which now, again, also has come out from Kino previously, but this is a new 4K scan of the original camera negative, which looks really good. And this is the old Blu-ray, which had a commentary from Steve DeJarnette, moderated by Walter Chow, and an interview with actor Tim Thomerson, as well as a making of. All that stuff is included here. And the Tarzana short film, the short films I mentioned are on this disc as well, if you only get this one. But interviews, featurette storyboards, deleted extended scenes, gag reel, trailers. This also has a new audio commentary by film historians Heather Buckley, Michelle Kisner, and Heidi Honeycutt, which I'm very excited to check out. Tales from Zone 7, an oral history of the making of Cherry 2000 documentary, which I think was on the other disc. The Zen of Julie Weiss, costume designer Julie Weiss in discussion with Steve DeJarnette, featurette. So this is a really nice, again, double disc set where we have bonus features, some features with the feature and some bonus features on its own. But this movie, for those that don't know, stars Melanie Griffith, Ben Johnson, Tim Thomerson, David Andrews, need a bounty hunter? She's your man. In the future, a man travels to the ends of the earth to find the perfect woman. In this fun-filled sci-fi adventure, Melanie Griffith is delightful and unflappable as a futuristic bounty hunter on a mission to find a robot replicant of a rich man's short-circuited wife. When successful businessman Sam Treadwell, that's David Andrews, who I guess was in Fight Club, finds that his android wife, Cherry Model 2000, that's Pamela Gidley playing that android, has blown a fuse. He hires sexy renegade tracker E. Johnson, that's Griffith, to find her exact duplicate. But their journey to replace his perfect mate leads them into the treacherous and lawless region of the Zone. Steve DeJarnette made his feature film debut in this badass, action-packed, futuristic thriller featuring a stellar cast that includes Ben Johnson, Harry Carey Jr., Lawrence Fishburne, Brian James, Robert Zadar, Michael C. Gwynn, again, Jack Thibault, and Tim Thomerson. So another really nice release of a cool cult film, and Steve DeJarnette is definitely a cult filmmaker just for Miracle Mile and this. He didn't make a lot of other movies, which is too bad because I would love to have seen what else he would do, but I really am a fan of Miracle Mile, and Cherry 2000 is very enjoyable as well. Okay, shifting gears here, we'll talk about some Westerns. First I have The Lonely Man from 1957, starring Jack Palance and Anthony Perkins. This is a brand new HD master from a 6K scan of the 35 VistaVision original camera negative. Like Alan Ladd's Shane and Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, The Lonely Man belongs to that saddlebag full of classic films about a gunslinger coming to terms with his infamous past and uncertain future. Grizzled Jack Palance stars as Jacob Wade, a notorious outlaw trying to ride the trail of respectability, but where Wade goes, his reputation follows, and so does trouble. Fearful citizens are quick to turn him out of their town. Vengeful killers have vowed to stalk him to his grave, and Wade's son, that's Anthony Perkins, is embittered over his father's long absence and cannot quell the pain and hate in his heart. Western regulars Neville Brand, Robert Middleton, Elisha Cook Jr., Claude Akins, and Lee Van Cleef co-star in this spare, ruggedly entertaining Sagebrush saga. This is a tough one because it's very much about the dealing with the fallout of being a gunslinger. Not the cool part of it, not the I get to kill people and walk away like Clint Eastwood or something. This is dealing with a guy who is fully immersed in the results of his life. And his son really doesn't care for him anymore, is not in a great place psychologically. And Jack Palance's character is just really not happy and would love to reconcile with his son. There's some tension with them about the loss of his mother, which I won't go into, but it's great performances all around, and like I read off that supporting cast, it's pretty spectacular, I gotta say. A little bit downbeat, if you're into sort of a downbeat Western that isn't, I mean, like I said, it's really taking on something that a lot of Westerns don't, which is, again, this sort of aftermath of a certain lifestyle. But it's an enjoyable film for sure, directed by Henry Levin. This has an audio commentary by film historian Toby Rohn, who of course did the wonderful blog about 50s Westerns, and he is one of the most knowledgeable gents I know that I've heard of about this topic, so he's good for a commentary on this. Definitely worth a look. Equally so, and a re-release. I don't think it's gotten a new scan because they don't list that, but Monty Walsh from 1970. Now, the previous release of this had no features at all, and this has added a commentary and a slipcase, but I don't know if this went out of print. So anyway, it's a really nice, really solid Western. The commentary is by Lee Marvin biographer Dwayne Epstein, and he calls it elegiac. And I think that's a perfect descriptor for this, which is one of those movies that's sort of about the end of the West. It's a buddy movie in a sense, because Lee Marvin plays Monty Walsh, the main character, and Jack Palance plays Chet Rollins, his buddy. They are cowboys who are coming to realize that they are more and more not of use anymore, or their skills as cowboys, the things they want to do from riding a horse, and it's becoming a time where barbed wire fences and the trains have sort of taken away a lot of the cowboy, driving work. So the movie starts with kind of a jokey tone, but it sort of takes more of a serious turn, more thoughtful turn by the end. But Jack Palance again in this one, very good, and he and Lee Marvin together are pretty great, I gotta say. Lee Marvin has a love interest played by Jean Moreau. She's a prostitute that he is become a regular of, but really likes a lot. She has tuberculosis, and Jack Palance finds his way into a romance too that sort of plays into the plot. But the supporting cast is ridiculous. You've got like Jim Davis, G.D. Spradlin, very young Bo Hopkins, Matt Clark, Billy Greenbush, Richard Farnsworth shows up here, and it's really something. It's directed by William A. Fraker, who only made a couple other movies, Reflection of Fear in 1972, and The Legend of the Lone Ranger in 1981, which is sort of a notorious flop. But he was a incredibly prophetic, or incredibly busy cinematographer who worked all through the mid 60s on through the like 90s. When did he? I mean, I guess he worked up to the 2000s when he passed away. I think he died in 2010. But just to give you an idea of some of the stuff he's worked on: Rosemary's Baby, Bullet. Let's see here: Rancho Deluxe, Gator, Exorcist 2, Heaven Can Wait. Oh, he worked with Floyd Mutrux a couple times. American Hot Wax and the Hollywood Nights. And Aloha, Bobby and Rose. Looking for Mr. Goodbar, he shot that. War Games, he shot a few films for Ralph Bakshi, which is interesting. I'm assuming he shot the plates that they would then animate over. So he shot Coonskin and Hey Good Lookin'. He also shot Sharky's Machine for Burt Reynolds. So obviously Burt Reynolds directed Gator as well. He obviously got along with Burt, which is neat. And Dusty and Sweets McGee, which is a really interesting docudrama about some drug users in the 70s. Also Mutrix. yeah, really, Tombstone he also shot, Street Fighter. Fascinating career, but I do like this as an end of the West kind of Western, and yeah, the cast is just great. So not a new scan as far as I can tell, but this new commentary is really worthwhile. Gripping saga that covers tumultuous final days of the Old West, featuring a changing landscape where barbed wire and railways replace the freedom of the open range. Monty Walsh and his fellow cowboys consider new work opportunities, toy with the idea of settling down, and draw their pistols for one last showdown. Decades after its original theatrical debut, the unbridled spirit of the American frontier rides again. Legendary cinematographer William A. Fraker directs this realistic Western from a strong supporting cast, and I went through them already. Great group of actors that will really catch your eye. But 2 through 5 to 1 Blu-ray looks good, so there's no issue with the transfer. 99 minutes, so not an incredibly long one either. Just a few more things here. Another classic. Here we have The Killer is Loose. This is from director Bud Bedecker, who I'm a big fan of, and who would, of course, go on to direct a bunch of great Westerns with the wonderful Randolph Scott. But he would sort of break into those right around, well, he just did a ton of movies, all right? So he's kind of doing this in the midst of a group of Westerns that he's already working on. This is 1956 that this comes out, but it precedes the Ranown Westerns, the ones that have come out from Criterion and such, that he did with Randolph Scott, starting with 7 Men from Now, that year, and then on to The Tall T, Decision at Sundown, Buchanan Rides Alone, Ride Lonesome, Comanche Station. He also did one with Randolph Scott called Westbound. But he'd done some Westerns before this, actually. He actually, his bread and butter was mostly Westerns, although he did do a few other genres, some adventure films and some noir-y stuff. But this is one of the better ones in terms of the noir. This is a pretty neat one. It's been out on Blu-ray before. This is got a new commentary from film historian and screenwriter Gary Girani that's been added. Previously, I think it had come out from like Olive or something. I'm trying to remember who put this out, but it doesn't say anything about a new scan here. But again, another one that looks good. There's no problem. But Detective Sam Wagner's job is never easy, but this is no ordinary stressful day for Wagner, that's Joseph Cotten, or his wife Lila, Rhonda Fleming. After pegging a recent bank robbery as an inside job orchestrated by a deceptively mild-mannered, bespectacled clerk Leon Poole, played by Wendell Corey, in a really great psycho turn here, Wagner heads to the suspect's apartment to make a peaceable arrest. Instead, Poole's beloved wife is accidentally killed in the crossfire of a violent shootout. Sent to prison and believing Wagner is responsible for his wife's death, Poole is desperate for revenge. Escape and murder soon follow, with the maniacal Poole hellbent on taking away the woman Wagner loves. Helmed by the gritty Bud Bedecker, director of Horizons West, Wings of the Hawk, 7 Men from Now, The Tall T. Killer is Loose takes the filmmaker's unique visual style away from the plains and into the world of suburbia for this taut and terrifying noir thriller. Close your windows, lock your doors. The Killer is Loose. 73 minutes, so a breezy 73. I like that, and has a really solid ending. An ending that you'll just kind of gives you like a ooh, wow, okay, yeah. So it's pretty solid. Gets a nice ramp up to the end, really, and yeah, Joseph Cotten is really solid. I'm a big fan of him, and Wendell Corey just really knocks it out of the park as this psycho. You know, he really becomes very unhinged and is sort of plays it that almost like quiet but scary quiet kind of thing. So anyway, very enjoyable release of The Killer's Loose with that new commentary. Really makes it worth checking out. And a couple here I haven't fully gotten to check out yet, but I'm excited about. This one from Kino Classics, I believe. It is Let's Get Lost, which is from 1988. It's a documentary about the great jazz musician Chet Baker from Bruce Weber. And it intercuts footage from the 1950s when he was part of a West Coast Cool, and from his last years We see the young Baker, he of the beautiful face, in California and in Italy, where he appeared in at least one movie and at least one jail cell for drug possession. And we see the aged Baker, detached, indifference, his face a ruin, includes interviews with his children, ex-wife, women, companions, and musicians, some of those including Chris Isaac. Flea is a big part of this. Well, I'm curious how they... Oh, and this is a brand new 4K restoration of this. So I threw it on for a second, and it looks really, really nice. Black and white. Traveling with the elusive jazz vocalist and trumpeter Chet Baker, Bruce Weber weaves together the life of the story of a jazz great. The film uses excerpts from Italian B-movies, rare performance footage, and candid interviews with Baker, musicians, friends, battling ex-wives, and his children in what turned out to be the last year of his life. Winner of the 1989 Critics' Prize at the Venice Film Festival and nominated for an Academy Award, Let's Get Lost has become a landmark documentary of the life of a jazz legend. Since its release in '89, Let's Get Lost has introduced a whole generation of jazz enthusiasts to the timeless talent of Chet Baker. This restored by Cinerec, New York City, from a 16mm reversal original of the film, supervised by cinematographer Jeff Price and director Bruce Weber. Audio remixed by Audio Mechanics. Special features include short films by Bruce Weber, Backyard Movie, Beauty Brothers, Gentle Giants, Liberty City is Like Paris to Me, The Teddy Boys of Edwardian Draped Society, Wine and Cupcakes. So a bunch of those extras of short films that I want to check out as well. But an interesting documentary in terms of the way that it's put together. It's almost experimental in terms of the flow of it, and I was really digging that. So I'm excited to finish this one. But very cool when something like this gets a restoration, gets a new spotlight on it, and definitely one I've meant to see for a long time. So that's Let's Get Lost. And lastly, we have another classic film. This is Teacher's Pet from 1958, starring Clark Gable, Doris Day, Gig Young, Maybe Van Doren, Marion Ross, Jack Albertson. Quite a supporting cast, actually. Directed by George Seaton. And this one I thought I had seen, but I'm not actually sure. Brand new HD master by Paramount from a 6K scan of the 35 VistaVision original camera negative. Film legends Clark Gable and Doris Day headline a comedy with class. Gable in one of the finest late career performances, plays Jim Gannon, a school of hard knocks newspaperman who despises journalism schools until he sees who's doing the teaching. Attracted to the lovely Professor Erica Stone, that's Day, he masquerades as a novice in her class. Soon, he's her prize pupil, and all the while trying to make her his own prize. Also answering the roll call in this engaging romp are giggle-inducing Gig Young, Maybe Van Doren, Nick Adams, and Jack Albertson. Ready, class? Today we conjugate to laugh in this grade A romantic comedy classic from producer William Perlberg, Miracle on 34th Street, director George Seaton, The Country Girl, Airport, and scribes Michael Kanan, Oscar nominated for Best Original Screenplay in 1958. Very cool. Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen it, but I love that setup, and I like a good late career Clark Gable performance, and it sounds like fun. I like when people pretend to be, when they're really good at something, and they pretend to be a novice, or I kind of dig that setup. This has a new audio commentary by film historian, writer Julie Kurgo, and writer-filmmaker Peter Hankoff. So going back to the very beginning with the Hatari commentary, the same duo on this disc as well. But yeah, definitely one I hope to see as a discovery for 2025. But that'll do it for this round of Kino titles. Thank you for listening and sticking with me, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.